Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Hey, movie lovers, I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson. We are the hosts of the Next Reel Film Podcast.
If you're passionate about films like we are, you'll love our show. Each week, we dive deep into a movie, discussing everything from the story and performances to the cinematography and score.
Not to mention budgets and awards. We have covered iconic series like Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather trilogy, examining themes of power, family, and the dark side of the American dream.
We've explored the works of groundbreaking directors like Catherine Bigelow, discussing her mastery of tension.
We've looked at heist films, great car chases, great years in film, couples on the run, and more.
Our discussions go beyond the surface, examining what makes each film tick. We believe that when the movie ends, the conversation begins.
And we'd love for you to join that conversation. Find the Next Reel Film Podcast on your favorite podcast app or at thenextreel.com.
The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Hey, psst. Hey, you see that Snickers over there? If no one's looking, you should just take it.
No! Don't listen to him, my son. That would be stealing, and stealing is a sin.
Sin Schmin, it's a friggin' Snickers bar. You deserve to have it. Sinning really satisfies you.
Repent, my child. Virtue is the only real snack worth savoring. For that candy bar is merely a gateway to nougat damnation. Has this ever happened to you?
Listening to the devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, and you're not sure what to think?
Then we're here to help. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III, and this season on All the Feelings, we're examining the 7 deadly sins.
You know, the fun ones.
And the 7 heavenly virtues.
Which are also a thing. Through personal stories, historical oddities, and way too much embarrassment, we take you on a thrilling journey through all the goods and the bads you hear about in church.
But without all that pesky church stuff. So come join us for All the Feelings Season 9, a sometimes funny podcast about being human. All the sins, all the virtues.
All in one place. Go to allthefeelings.fun to learn more, or subscribe to All the Feelings wherever you get your podcasts.
Game over.
Coming up on The Devil's Details, it's the devil and Tom Walker.
Tom Walker.
Tom Walker.
We hate New York, fucking Yankees fans.
Yeah. Those Gawker blockers. Those rubberneckers. Good morning, Star, and welcome to another episode of The Devil's Details, a show where we dig up, decipher, dissect, and deconstruct the many forms of the devil. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're just two lost souls hitchhiking down the highway to hell. But today we made a stop at Boston.
Hey, Lester, how's your mother?
Hey, you know, when I showed up 40 minutes late to the party, your sister dropped me like a sack of lobsters.
Don't talk about my sister.
No, that's on a list of things to help me with my Boston accent because this story today is set in Boston, Keenan. And so I've been brushing up on my Bostonian accent. And there are, you know how there's like the rain in Spain stays mainly on the, when you're doing a Boston accent, it's when I showed up 40 minutes late to the party, your sister dropped me like a sack of lobsters.
What did I tell you about talking about my sister?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so the instructor on YouTube actually, and I'll post a link in the show notes and the listener group. She says, if you're having trouble, just be angry.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
No. She has a Bostonian husband, and her husband is helping her with all this stuff. We love you, Boston. We especially love you after recent things in the news. With the protests and everything. It's been beautiful.
I saw a poll where they voted the Boston accent the sexiest accent in America.
Really?
Yeah, I buy that.
Wow. Yeah.
Whenever Chris Evans brings out his Boston accent, because he's cultivated a mainstream accent for his acting career, but every once in a while you could see him on the red carpet meeting some other New Englander, and it comes out.
Right. And there's, Good Will Hunting with our buddy Robin Williams, and we got Matt Damon, who's looking wicked hot, and he's sounding wicked hot, and other guy,
Ben Affleck?
Yeah, that guy. But yeah, so no, we're excited. Now we know that this is back when they didn't have this Bostonian accent. They had a different Bostonian accent, but that's less fun. So much like when we did Dante, and we sounded like Mario.
Right, the Italian language hadn't been invented yet. Yeah.
We're giving everyone in The Devil and Tom Walker modern Bostonian accents.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, and yeah, folks, welcome back. This is our new season where we cover stories that start with the devil and. So like the devil and Tom Walker, the devil and Daniel Webster, right? Tales where the devil himself shows up to make a deal, challenge a mortal, or otherwise meddle in human affairs. And as we explore these stories throughout the season, we'll see some fascinating patterns emerge. First, there's the contract and negotiation element, right? These aren't just random encounters with the devil, but carefully structured bargains with specific terms that humans try to navigate, manipulate, and or escape.
Obviously, we couldn't have emerged with these stories without Faust. That they are versions of Faust. I'm not sure how much that comes into play in our first story here, Tom Walker. I'd love to hear that about you, but certainly there would be no Devil in Tom Walker without Dr. Faustus Faust, the original Faust, and all that stuff.
Right, and his good old buddy, sometimes even more than a good old buddy, Mephistopheles.
Right.
Yeah, right. We're also going to examine these stories, especially the American ones, and see how they pit individual kind of like American, what's that word? Not independence.
Individualism.
Individualism. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, how American individualism against the infernal forces.
Right.
This idea that a clever or a stubborn enough person might actually outsmart the Prince of Darkness himself. All right.
Good luck, everybody.
Yep.
No, but actually, sometimes in some of our stories, they do.
Yeah.
The American way overcomes the devil.
Yes. It's weird. As we've kind of like examined the devil, he's kind of gone from, angel to, god of the underworld to trickstery guy to like he has all the power and he's, like you should be scared of him to is this aw shucks guy that you can like he's gonna fleece you, but then you fleece him, type thing, right? Yeah. There's also this recurring element of professional expertise, where humans rely on specialized skills, whether it's law or music or gambling or like playing the fiddle or something like that, right? That they believe gives them an edge against the devil.
Right.
Yeah. And what's particularly interesting is how these stories are often tied to specific regions and their cultural anxieties, right? We got New England's Puritan legacy, right? We got like Southern crossroads mythology or frontier expansion fears, right?
Sometimes fear of African Americans or natives. Yeah. And that starts. Yeah, we're going to start right with that today.
Yeah. Get ready. But yeah, it's that old Americans like I wouldn't go over there if I were you.
Right, exactly.
Right, if the devil was in Maine, right? Yeah, there's people who are different over there.
Right, but in Boston they say, stay the fuck out of there. Why are you going to go over there for?
Those people are wicked. Like, not wicked as in like...
Not wicked smart. Not wicked cool.
Like wicked.
Wicked.
But yeah. Now, many of these tales also serve as critiques of capitalism, linking the devil directly to economic exploitation and greed, something we're going to explore in depth with today's story about Tom Walker.
Yeah,
right?
That's interesting. Now that you say it that way, right? That's not really as much there in the Faust legend. Like, there's the money, but the money is a means to an end or like a side effect. Like, we don't get the Scrooge McDuck, dancing around in the money in the European Fausts.
Right. Money it's part of it, but the bigger part is that you're with the, Roman emperor, living it up in his palace or something.
Right. And you have a title and you have knowledge or you have kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's less about it's like oh, it's like this is I found a way to just like pull gold out of the ground or something. Also, we're going to encounter all sorts of moral loopholes, those technicalities or clever escapes that become central to the resolution, raising questions about whether contracts with evil can ever truly be broken. Right, and those loopholes are going to be exploited both by the devil in some stories, and then also by the people outsmarting the devil, right? Well, you never said she was your sister.
What did I tell you about bringing up my sister?
I'm sorry. I was trying to make a point about lobsters. No.
Right. But yeah, there's no rules that says a dog can't play basketball.
Exactly.
There's nothing in the rule book
based on all of the devil stories.
Soul, right? Yeah, he's the most evil of them all. Is Air Bud.
Yes. It used to be the previous title before it was punched up was Prince of the Air, Bud. Right. And the dog's name was Cerberus. It was it was crazy. Now, nearly all of these stories feature trials or contests. Maybe not so much this one. This is a weird one to start on, right? I feel like this one, like even though it is the devil and it's a little bit more. It's almost like you could swap this devil out, and he could be like a leprechaun or some kind of like fae because it doesn't really,
he could be an agent of the devil.
Yeah, right. He could be anything. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's like some kind of contest, some kind of competition, or a court case or a battle of wits between human and devil that forms the kind of dramatic core of the narrative.
Right.
And finally, there is this consistent theme of folk justice. These aren't just scary stories, but morality tales where the truly wicked, and not like wicked, but like, they face supernatural consequences while those with some redeemable quality might find an escape clause. Right? So yeah, today we are starting with Washington Irving's The Devil and Tom Walker. Perfect example of how early America took the European Faust legend and transformed it into something uniquely American. So let's begin our journey into the world where mortals dare to bargain with the devil himself.
Yeah, I had not heard of this story at all. And actually, when Lester was pitching us doing this, he would say, like, The Devil and Tom Walker, and I would correct him and go, The Devil and Daniel Webster. And he was like, no, there's another one. Like,
friggin' Gawker blocker.
No, I really had not heard this about this at all. And so this is Washington Irving, who, is a really big deal, but for whatever reason, this one had passed me by.
Yeah, right? Like, he's like the largest pickle in the jar. He's a really big deal. Thank you. But no, this is slightly before The Devil and Daniel Webster, and this is Washington Irving, so let's actually talk about him a little bit. So born in 1783 in New York City. Irving was basically America's first internationally famous writer. He gave us iconic stories like Rip Van Winkle, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, right, with the Headless Horseman. I can't not see Ichabod when I read Tom Walker. I mean, they're completely different, but also maybe not.
I just see Daniel Webster. No, I see Jabez Stone from The Devil and Daniel Webster.
There we go. Yeah. Yes. But Irving had this incredible ability to blend folklore, history, and fiction, creating these distinctly American tales that often had European literary influences. He spent years living abroad in England and Spain, which gave his writing this unique cross-cultural flavor. Devil and Tom Walker, which he published in 1824 as part of his Tales of a Traveler collection, shows how brilliantly he could take European folklore like Faust and transform it into something uniquely American. Irving died in 1859, but his stories have become permanent fixtures in American literature.
Yeah, and I love Irving, right? So I've read Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And what he does is he like couches these totally fictional stories within like, well, I'm telling you this because I've heard it as part of legends from the real people in this town. And so I don't really have the full answer for how this happens because nobody was really there. But some people say this is how it happened. And then, this is in this book called Tales of a Traveler. And he makes up this persona. I think today they would probably just say written by Washington Irving, but it originally says Tales of a Travelers by Geoffrey Crayon, Gentleman. And that's so Geoffrey Crayon is this fictional like Daniel Handler's Lemony Snicket or something, right?
Yes.
So as you're reading it, you're like hearing it in Geoffrey Crayon's voice of this, but also the story, Legend Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle are Geoffrey Crayon stories.
And you know they're all true because Geoffrey Crayon is a gentleman.
He's a gentleman, yes.
Right? So you know these are true stories because like, you know, this guy's word is you know, as good as his bond. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's part of this tongue-in-cheek fun, right? The American like making fun of heirs of like this, like gentlemen
right.
as a title, right?
Yeah. And I like this is a time when we desperately want to have like legends and myths in you know, our new country, right? Like, you know, it's like, oh yes, like, you know, we came from Europe and, you know, like you're tripping over, you know, fairy folk and King Arthur is all over the place over there, right? The ground is soaked in, you know, in wizard's blood and all that stuff,
and
right?
Romans, emperors, and, and, you know, and the kings, the Holy Roman Emperor and all that stuff, right?
So we need something. We need, you know, some kind of like we have to stress that like, oh, we're not making up these stories. These are, you know, it's like now I don't, you know, I know people in the story or I know so-and-so's like great-great-grandfather and he says that he saw the devil and, you know, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we want this connection to legend and we don't want to get it from the Indians.
Yeah.
Who already have that.
I just realized, it's like, no. It's like, well, how about we share that? No,
all that's nonsense, right? All that's hoodoo and mumbo jumbo and get that out of here.
And it's pagan and it's not Christian.
Right.
But let's make up some shit that's also pagan and not Christian.
Exactly, yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of like the flavor of these early stories, right?
Right.
And funny, like, because like this could be seen as kind of like a modernization of Faust, but you got Rip Van Winkle, which there's a story. There's like a Japanese myth about, I think it's Urashima Taro, who, you know, he travels on the back of this turtle and he goes to I think it's the Golden Palace, and then he comes back and like hundreds of years have passed, and you know, but he hasn't aged, and you know, so these stories existed before, and this is kind of like putting an American spin on them.
Right.
Yeah, and everybody knows the story of like, you know, well, just don't go over to that bridge because there's a frickin' headless monster thing over there, and you know, or there's a troll or a headless horseman or you know, whatever. You know.
Yeah, a headless guy guarding a bridge is bad news in all cultures.
Yeah,
it's the universal language.
Yes, right. Yeah, but yeah, so let's talk about this classic American folktale, the Devil and Tom Walker, right? So it kicks off the story. Kicks off around 300 years ago, back in the late 1600s, when Captain William Kidd, not to be confused by Billy the Kid, that's different. That's another American thing.
Oh, but he's also a William Kidd.
He's also a Bill. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. One's a pirate. One's a cowboy. Okay. But he was basically the most famous pirate in the world. This is William Kidd, right? This guy sailed around capturing ships and stealing money and supposedly hiding treasure all over the place. Eventually, the English caught him in Boston, right? And they executed him in 1701. After that, everyone and their brother was out looking for Captain Kidd's hidden treasure. Right? Now, the story hasn't even started yet. This is kind of like a setup to the story.
Right. Well, the previous short story in Tales of a Traveler, the one right before The Devil and Tom Walker, is Kidd the Pirate.
Oh.
So it lays this stuff out and then, ends just like you said, like he dies and then there's the treasure is still out there somewhere, somewhere out there today. And then we go right into the Devil and Tom Walker. Right.
And again, I feel like this is an American thing where it's like there are stories of pirates and there are stories of, you know, like riches and you know, dragons hoarding wealth in Europe. But like, I feel like they don't have stories about stories of like, well, now the dragon's dead. Let's go get that treasure, you know, in modern day, you know.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I can, you know, capitalism. Yeah. Let's grab, you know, Captain Kidd's treasure. Right.
It's like I like what you're saying. Like we want this connection to the like ancient myths that are around, but because it's a relatively recent myth, you can go and find these things.
Yes. Right. And it kind of has like this flavor of like, oh, you know what King Arthur should have done? he should have melted down Excalibur and sold it, and get a wicked house.
I was seeing on my favorite game show, actually, where they the whole thing is there's 13 questions, and most of them are them saying statements that there's something wrong in there, and then you have to buzz in and correct the host, and find actually. But they were debating about Excalibur, and because one of the contestants had like one set of Arthurian legend that was like their canon, and the other one had a different set. So the debate was like, does Excalibur come from the Lady in the Lake, or does it come from some other place?
From the
Sword in the Stone, right?
Yeah. Oh, geez, I never even realized that. Holy, jeez, I had those both in my head.
It can't come from both, right? Exactly.
Oh my God, yeah. And what was the answer?
Well, then the host is like, well, no, it depends. but more Arthurian scholars say that Excalibur comes from the Lady in the Lake, and that the sword that proves Arthur is the king is a different sword.
Oh, the Sword in the Stone is a different sword.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But yeah, you want to have it both ways, right? They're both Excalibur somehow.
The devil is both the prince of the air and under the earth. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, sure. Right? He's an angel and a demon. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the prince of this world, and whatever.
And he's sexy as fuck.
Right? David Bowie and or Tilda Swinton, like kind of both of them,
Right.
Yeah. And also a huge ugly monster, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're talking about Captain Kidd's treasure. Now, it's important to understand that in the 1720s, when this story is set, pirates weren't the romanticized figures that they would later become, like in Mark Twain's era, right? I remember, like, Mark Twain, I think it was in The Bible According to Mark Twain, maybe. But, like, because he's always talking about, like, the afterlife and God and the devil and everything like that. But I think he says something like he had an idea of heaven where, like, in heaven we'll be able to play pirates all the time. And, like, as that, like, so... Like, when Mark Twain was alive, pirates were romanticized. It was like, cowboys, like, we get to be pirates now,
right?
Yep. Yeah. And that was like the funnest thing for little kids, I guess.
Yeah. But it romanticized with a capital R, like, also like pirates and the cowboy and like the adventurer of like Phileas Fogg. Like, these are the people who were going out and like finding the world,
right? Yeah,
and discovering it. And their interaction with the native cultures was like a sign of them being like Renaissance men, like going out and like living in all the different cultures.
Right. And saying nothing about like the looting, the pillaging,
and the raping,
yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Right. But
Phileas Fogg did.
Yeah, exactly. fucking Phileas Fogg. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right to your acting coach lady and tell her that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking Phileas Fogg with his hot air balloon.
Yeah.
Hot air balloon. Fucking Phileas Fogg.
Yeah. Don't get me started. I hope our Boston listeners are patient with us on this episode. But yeah, so none of that here. Pirates were like a real danger, or they had just finished being a real danger. So nobody's dressing up, nobody's playing pirates. I don't think. But yeah, so 1720s was actually like the tail end of the quote golden age of piracy, right? And colonial newspapers regularly reported on pirate attacks, right? So Kidd's public execution had been just a couple decades earlier, right? And Blackbeard was killed in 1718. But when Irving was writing in the 1820s, piracy had declined enough that the romanticization, that's hard to say, process had begun, right? But in Tom Walker's time, pirates inspired fear, not children's games.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the folks in Massachusetts in the 1700s had this belief that Kidd had buried some of his loot near Boston, supposedly up this little river that fed into the Atlantic, right? So the local legend was that Kidd had sailed up this river, like a pirate sailing up a now like United States river.
Right.
That's crazy to think about.
You can't think about it that way, yeah.
Yeah. Yo ho ho and all that, right? And so the legend was that he buried his gold and his silver and his jewels under this big tree, right? It's always a big tree. And get this, the treasure was supposedly protected by the devil himself. The devil himself? What are you doing here, right? In this show about the devil, we finally got to him, right? Who's supposedly buddies with Captain Kidd. Okay, right?
Sure, he was a pirate. He was bad.
Yeah, right? Just pirate, yeah. But if you ask the locals, they might say, whatever. For the record, I never saw it. That's one of the exercises. Whatever. I feel like you gotta do this too. He's like, whatever.
Right.
For the record, I never saw it.
Right. Whatever. For the record, I never saw it.
Good. Oh my God, you're better than me. Dang it. Right.
Right. Don't say you saw it. You seen it.
Yeah.
Don't be ignorant.
Yeah.
You seen it. You never seen it.
My favorite one, I'm just going to insert this in here because it doesn't work anywhere else. But
Okay.
Says, if you're wicked smart, you'll get a stickah when you park your car at Harvard Yard. If you're wicked smart, right? Yeah.
I'm very happy at my school, UNLV, where I teach. I love it, and my plan is to be here forever. But I almost did apply to become a professor at Emerson College because they have a program in comedy, like a university degree in comedy, and I wanted to be a professor there. I decided not to because I was happy here, et cetera. But if I had moved to Boston, I think I would have gotten my ass kicked on the weekly, just slipping into this terrible Boston accent, right? With my Dunkin'. That's the thing, though. I don't like Dunkin' Donuts coffee, so I don't think I could do it.
Your Dunkin' Donuts coffee,
right? Get out of here.
Right now, okay. So. Now we got this. The story starts proper, right?
Yeah, I mean, Irving takes a couple of pages to set everything up we did, so we're not just like, even when you're reading in the 1820s, you're not like, oh, you're just supposed to know this stuff. Like he's reminding you of this, and that's again what's brilliant about Irving when he talks to you about Rip Van Winkle. He's done all this like pseudo historical work, like a combination of real history and then the legends of the local town, and so then you believe that this guy is going to fall asleep for decades.
Yeah, so he's doing a little bit of name dropping. He's referencing like real things, and he's like, oh, okay, so this maybe actually did happen.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So in 1727, we got this guy Tom Walker. He's living near Boston, the story says, right? So he might be referred to as a hardo. Because he's trying too hard. Or no, I think that's what we are. I
think. They got other words for us in Boston.
Yeah. You're going to get some emails probably. But it's worth noting that this is about 35 years after the Salem witch trials of 1692 and 93. By this time, the mass hysteria had died down, but that Puritan fear of the devil's influence was still very much part of the cultural DNA of the region. The memory of those executed for witchcraft was still fresh in the collective consciousness.
Right.
Yeah. We were gonna like start this off with a Salem witch trials thing, but that's a whole different ball of yarn that we're gonna.
Yeah,
we
will
get into
that eventually. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and Salem, when you say the Salem witch trials or whatever, like, you can lose how close it is to Boston. Back then, of course, it would take you quite some time. But Salem is now like in the suburbs of Boston. It's like a 30-minute car ride from like downtown Boston.
Yeah, and if I remember, I mean, like there was a lot of interaction even back then between Salem and Boston during the witch, like because Judge Hawthorne, right? Nathaniel Hawthorne's great grandfather. Yeah. He was the Bostonian judge, right? He would get to the trials. He'd be like, "Don't get me started." No.
Right. I sentence you to be hanged from your neck until dead for talking about my sister.
And for God's sake, get that lobster out of the bag.
But anyways, yes. So we're in that context of the Salem witch trials, and then there's some oblique sort of references to the beginnings of what would be known as the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
So a couple decades before, like Jonathan Edwards, you might have read in high school, like I did, but within that realm, like the beginnings of the Great Awakening in America. Yeah. He calls it the earthquakes in Massachusetts.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Tom Walker, who, if he was from Massachusetts, because the story is being set up, Tom is the worst,
yes.
right? And if he was from Massachusetts, he would be referred to as a masshole. That's an actual term. Assholes from Massachusetts. But he's not. He's just a regular asshole, right? But interesting that we start this story, and I know of at least one other story that is like, the devil and such, and the such and such is like the worst person imaginable. Right? We might, I don't know, like it's a hard to find children's book. I have a copy of it.
Oh, I'd like to take a look at that.
Yeah, maybe we can, like, if I can find a way to like share it with everybody.
Okay.
We'll do an episode on it. It's called The Devil and Mother Crump.
Oh, I don't know that at all.
And it's got pictures in. I sought it out specifically because the pictures scared the shit out of me
Okay.
when I was little. But yeah, if you can find a consumable copy on the internet, then we'll do an episode on that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we're talking about Tom Walker. Absolute worst, completely obsessed with money and just generally unpleasant, right? The only person who was even more terrible than Tom, Irving, was his wife, who was equally money hungry. These two were so greedy that they would actually steal from each other. I feel like regular couples do that anyway. Right? But yeah, so we're setting this up, and yeah, we got the only person worse than Tom Walker was a woman.
But I do like it. Like, again, thinking about Sleepy Hollow, right?
Yeah,
like his view of relationships is very funny. And I think like when you watch the Disney version of it, this can kind of get lost a little bit. Like it's kind of there, but it's nowhere near as like poison pen as the original short story. But like you can kind of remember the Disney version and then remember the full story as like Ichabod is in love with Katrina Van Tassel, but he's not. He just likes her money. Yeah. And then she likes Brom Bones, but no, not really. She just likes his money. Yeah. Right. And yeah, like Ichabod likes money and food mainly. And food that he can get from money. yeah. And then if I remember, oh God, like when we do our other show, isn't the end like isn't Brom Bones kind of like he kind of gets his because like Katrina's like the boss? Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but he's the beaten down husband. Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. And he's got like all these children and God, men's lives are so hard. Jeez. So awful. Yeah, but no. Right. So so that's Irving, folks. Like, yeah. But I mean, like I'm seeing kind of like in this one, they deserve each other. It's like Tom, and he's got his wife who is not named, but it's like they're like carbon copies of each other in this one. Yeah, and they both, as we see, they're like both thinking about cheating the other out of money because the other would do that anyways, right? So like, I have no compunctions about stealing from my wife because she's trying to steal from me all the time, and she sort of, it's implied, thinks the same thing about him, which is true. Yeah, he is thinking about how to steal from her. Yeah. So there we go, folks. Now, and again, don't take our words for it, right? This is, what the hell's his name? Crayon? Yeah, Joffrey Crayon. He's a gentleman. This is Joffrey Crayon, right? Gentleman, he's telling the truth, right? But yeah, so one day Tom's walking home through this dark forest, and he's trying not to fall into any mud pools. Get the idea that he's kind of like maybe a little bit fussy, maybe he wants to keep himself clean, right? Yeah. We got that like gosh, I wish I had watched Sleepy Hollow right before this. But isn't Ichabod kind of yeah. And then he sits down on this fallen tree to rest, and he starts digging around with a stick. Even though this place was supposedly where Indians had made sacrifices to the devil. Yes. Joffrey Crayon knows, right? Yeah, it's like a fort or like a stronghold from the previous Indian Wars, which at that point was between the New Englanders, but then who they would call King Philip. So it's sometimes called King Philip's Wars. Right. Yeah. Europe's got their their druid holy places, and America's got Indian burial grounds. Yeah, exactly. So there's some truth to this. So this was a real war with King Philip, who was really named Metacom or Metacomet or something like that. And then, so this really happened. And so it's like, oh gosh, so that really happened. And this is like, this thing in American history that people in the 1820s would know about. And now we're also like giving it religious or like evil, devilish connotations to it. Right. That and the reason we had this great Indian war was because they were connected to pagan rituals. Right. And again, this is back when they didn't really like recognize or acknowledge any other religion. So, whatever the Native Americans worshipped, they were like, nope, you are devil worshippers. You worship the devil. Right. Our devil, whom you've never heard of. Yeah. And they certainly did not have human sacrifice I don't believe anywhere in New England, right? I don't think that was ever a thing, as far as I'm aware of. Yeah. But yeah, that's again like the misunderstanding of the Indians, and like calling him King Philip, I think is super interesting, because like part of the reason why they were doing that was to legitimize their war against them. Like they want to have it both ways. Like, these are savages who need to be destroyed, and they worship the devil and all this stuff, and they have a pagan religion, but also like we are kicking their asses, and so they're not just nobodies. They have a king.
Yes.
Like we have a king. Like, because they really had a like an elective chiefdom, I believe. Like they had like something like a republic. But like to legitimize, like, oh, we're so big and strong, we killed this king, King Philip.
Yeah. So having it both ways, having their cake, having their lobster, and eating it too, right? But no, it is that. Like, I think we talked about this in like very early episodes of our Exorcist show, where like the British or the other Europeans would go to these places that didn't have the type of hierarchies with dukes and princes and kings, and they would just be like, okay, you're the big cheese in charge here. We're going to call you King so-and-so. Right? And then they would like turn around and be like, oh, these guys don't act like kings or dukes at all, right? Which is like ridiculous.
Right. Bringing Pocahontas and calling her the princess of her people, which she wasn't. And then, calling her Princess Rebecca or what have you. And then look how odd Princess Rebecca is. And then, oh, look how wonderful she is once she's able to come to England and wear clothes and that kind of thing and exoticize her.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we got. So, our kind of like legends and ghost stories are kind of like born out of, this ground that's soaked in the blood of Native Americans, basically. Yeah. But yeah, so sacrifices to the devil, blah, blah, blah. Tom's not worried about that, though.
Right.
The only devil he fears is his wife.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Tells you everything you need to know about Tom, about their marriage, and about like, American-style myths.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's digging around with this stick, and he hits something hard. It's a human skull with, again, Irving doesn't like know the details of this, but like it says an Indian axe in it, right? Yeah. And then suddenly you hear this angry voice booming out, and it says, "I swear to God, if you don't get off my porch, I'm calling the cops." No, it doesn't. Yeah, so that's not what he says. So Keenan, can you tell us exactly what this voice says?
It's this weird 1820s-ish, right? "Let that skull alone," said a gruff voice.
A gruff voice.
Yeah,
right?
not a bluff voice. Yeah.
No.
Let that skull alone. I guess that means leave.
Yeah, sure. Let that skull eat cake. I don't know. But yeah, Tom looks up and he sees this massive figure sitting on a broken, like a tree. Or maybe a tree stump.
Yeah.
And it's this giant. So, it says giant.
Yeah.
With almost black skin covered in ashes, or seemingly covered in ashes.
Right.
Big red eyes and hair standing straight up. And this guy is dressed like an Indian, or Irving's version of an Indian, carrying a huge axe.
Yeah, so Irving is saying that the stranger is neither like African American nor Indian, like he's something else, but then he's going to describe the ways in which he is like a black man and like an Indian. Right. And so we call him the black man here sometimes, and that's supposed to be like because he's covered with soot, but then some of his features are like black with a capital B descriptors here. Right.
And the word that Irving uses is begins with N-E, so it's that word.
Yeah.
Right? Now we should pause here to talk about Irving's racial coding in this description of the devil. When Irving describes the devil as having skin almost black and covered with ashes and dressed, quote, like an Indian, he's engaging in some problematic racial amalgamation. Literary scholars point out that this reflects the colonial American tendency to demonize both Native Americans and their spiritual practices, like we were talking about, right? The devil represents a combination of everything foreign or other to white Protestant culture of the time. So Irving likely wasn't suggesting the devil was literally African, but rather like using blackness symbolically while incorporating elements of Native American identity to create a being that would embody the racial anxieties of early America. It's almost even worse,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So Irving would say, people who are reading that literally, like, okay, he's not black, but then we describe him having like coarse black hair that stands out in all directions, which is like a natural African hair, right? So he's describing like something like an early afro.
Yeah. And yeah, of course, this kind of characterization contributed to harmful stereotypes that had real consequences, for marginalized communities. This is still back when, they had slaves.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because he's not saying that the devil seems to be like made of shadow or like, because like you see like, monsters or like, things in cartoons where they look like they're made of like the starry sky, or they look like actual shadows. He's not saying that. He's saying that he has a natural black skin color as if he's covered in soot, right? Which is implying that is bad.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. And Irving isn't like I like a lot of what's going on here because we're like satirizing a lot of the great like original sins of America. Like we'll use that term and we'll often use it to describe slavery as the great original sin of America. Sometimes we'll use that term to refer to the Indian genocide or the Native genocide. And then we're also going to talk about that like with the idea of like capitalism, which we use that term almost never, right? But like in my view as like a Marxist critic, that's what this story is getting at. But Irving doesn't have like, the wherewithal from 100 years or 150 years later to be like, well, he was the devil and he looked like the devil, but to Tom, who is from the 1720s, he could only racialize it and he could only see the devil from the point of view of how he would see an African.
Right. Yeah. And there's also, he's a giant and with red eyes as well. Right. So the red eyes, I don't know. Yeah. It's very devilly. Right. Yeah. So when the giant demands to know what Tom is doing on his land, Tom actually talks back, saying that the land belongs to some guy named Peabody.
Oh, Mr. Peabody.
Oh, quiet, you. we need to get the fuck out of this century, get back in the Wayback Machine now. But yeah, the giant just laughs and he points to the trees. Each one has the name of some rich Massachusetts bigwig carved into it. And Tom realizes that he's sitting on a tree with the name Absalom Kronenshield, right? Which I think is German, like crown and shield, Kronenshield, right?
Yeah, and I guess that was a real family. I guess Absalom is a fictional person, but that the Kronenshields were a real family of Bostonians who would still be really big in like the Washington Irving era.
Yeah. So this is a guy who supposedly got rich through piracy, just like Captain Kidd. So
he downloaded a car.
Yeah, he did. Like, don't copy that floppy, kids, or the devil will get you. Okay, so I have seen it. Is what is happening? Maybe I'm jumping ahead here. Are these trees supposed to be souls?
I think so. Yeah, or like fortunes or something. Yeah.
So the trees represent, like they have the names of each person on them. Because I've seen like kind of like a version of our Appointment in Samara type thing, right? Oh, no, it's a different, kind of like a version. There's a German folktale called Gewahrt, Godfather Death, where like he becomes godfather to this kid and he becomes a famous doctor, right? And the end of that, you see like Death's lair, and it has like all these candles, and each candle represents like a life, right?
Yeah, I've seen that in a German expressionist movie called Destiny, where he's not quite the devil, he's more like the Grim Reaper, but each life is a candle. Yeah. So this is kind of like in that same vein, where each like life or soul maybe is a tree, and that's why the devil's sitting on a tree, and he's got a big axe, and he's kind of like he's the thief in the vineyard type thing. Yeah, he's like a woodsman, it looks like, and he's like, marking down. I'm not sure about lifespan. Like the candle is sometimes lifespan in that other version, but maybe like fortunes, like how well they're doing or something.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It seems a little bit. Sometimes it seems to be either or.
Yeah. It's a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. Huh?
Right.
Yeah. So then the giant is talking about like, oh, yes, I'm going to, like his time is going to be up soon and I'm going to chop him down and burn him. So it's like you get the fires of hell, right? He's going to burn the wood, basically. He's going to chop down the tree and burn the wood. I guess that's when the soul belongs to him, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And then he's like, so what right do you have to cut down Deacon Peabody's timber? And then the devil says, the right of prior claim. This woodland belonged to me long before one of your white-faced race put foot upon the soil.
Right.
Yeah. And he says, well, who are you then, right? And he says, I have various names. I am the wild huntsman in some countries, the black miner in others. In this neighborhood, I am the black woodsman.
Right. So you just took two of those and you stuck them together.
That's true. I am he to whom the red men consecrated this spot. So, right, the natives have been worshiping him.
Right.
And in honor of whom they now and then roasted a white man by way of sweet-smelling sacrifice. Since the red men have been exterminated by you white savages. So, it's kind of, it's interesting. Like, it is... an equal opportunity devil, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the what it's saying about the natives is going into white people's stereotypes of the day. But then to also push back and going like, it's terrible that you have been exterminating. You've been genociders and you are savages for doing that.
I do like that that this devil calls the white man out. It's like, no, you guys are like the animals. It's like,
you're the savages. Yeah. I amuse myself by presiding at the persecutions of Quakers and Anabaptists. So again, like when you go and persecute other Protestant sects, that's me. I am the great patron and prompter of slave dealers. So when you have the slave trade, that's me. And I am the grand master of the Salem witches. So not of the witch trials, but of the witches.
Right.
Yes. So today we would say like the devil was responsible for the trials and the persecution of these unfairly accused people. But here it's that the witches were guilty.
Yeah. And he talks about like teaching the women to be witches and everything like that, right? So again, a direct reference to the Salem events that happened a generation earlier. But get this, guys, Tom's still not scared. Right, it's real Bostonian, real American. It's like, all that's true, whatever. Right?
Yeah, it's Chris Evans. Yeah.
Yeah. The devil explains that Captain Kidd buried treasure under the trees, and Tom could have it, but only by making a deal. Tom, being Tom Walker, right, money lover that he is, asks for time to think about it. Right, it's like, because you need, in these stories, you need that rhythm of like, and the very next day he went back to the forest and, instead of one ribbon, there was like a yellow ribbon around all the trees. And right?
Right.
That's one. Is that an American folktale? I can't remember.
Oh, the yellow ribbon around the old oak tree? I think so.
Yeah, but it was like I remember it from like a leprechaun story.
Oh, okay.
It's like because he catches the leprechaun and he's like, it's like, where's your stuff buried? And he's like, oh, under this tree. And then he ties a ribbon around it. And he's like, now you have to promise me not to take the ribbon off. And the leprechaun's like, oh, I promise, right? And then he comes back the next day and like all the trees have ribbons on them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So.
Yep. So before he goes though, Tom guesses that this devil's name is Old Scratch. Which I've only really heard from this and then, the stories that are based off of it.
Yeah. I think Daniel Webster has that too.
Yes.
The Old Scratch.
He's Old Scratch. Yeah. But that's a little bit later. But I was saying that Old Scratch might come, scratch in English sounds scary, right? Scratching. But it comes from this demon named Scrat. Which is not the Scrat from the Ice Age stories who's trying to eat that acorn and having these adorable adventures, right?
Because that would be cute.
That's super cute, right? He never gets his acorn.
Yeah.
But spelled the same Scrat, and then it's derived from like Norse and German, like something like Schrat or Schraz or Waldschrat. And so beyond the name of it, though, that Schrat seems to be completely different. It's usually like androgynous or like has both sexes or that kind of thing. And it's sometimes like a positive wood sprite and sometimes a demon. So it's all these different areas there. But that might be where the name comes from, at least. That's what the English, the Heritage Dictionary says.
And isn't that always the way? Like the good-natured or mischievous fairies of old, become kind of like the wicked demon devils of
we turn that
Christianity.
Into old Scratch.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Krampus isn't, Loki's grandson. He's the devil. Right? Or a devil. Yeah.
Right. And then, so he guesses his name is Old Scratch. The devil says yes. And then Tom Walker's like, well, I'm going to go talk this over. How do I know this was real? And so rather than Tom signing a contract with the devil signs Tom's forehead.
Yeah.
He puts his finger on him and says, this is my signature. And then when he goes home and looks in the mirror, it's like a black print of like a hoof, I think. Or no, just his finger burnt. But it's sort of that he's been branded in his forehead. Yeah. And he couldn't get it out.
Right. There's always there's a mark of the devil, right? There's, and I've seen in other versions, not in the Tom Walker versions, but there's like a cloven hoof or something like that, right? And back in the witches, in the witch trials, they would always be looking for devil's marks, and like witches' teats, and which is like they would use to feed their familiars, right? The little animals, the pets or whatever. And it could be anything. It didn't have to be like a third nipple or anything like that. It could be just a cut or a weird birthmark or whatever.
Yeah, because you already think that they're guilty, so you're just trying to find anything.
Yeah, right.
Whether you're conscious of it or not, you'd be like, look at this. What the hell is this, right?
Yeah. You know what, Keenan? The more I think about it, the more I think this might have been all made up. Like they were just yes-anding their way to mass executions.
Of course they were improvisers.
Yes, of course.
They were terrible. Of course they were improvisers.
Right, I need a location. Hell. Jeez. But so he says he's going to go back and think about it, and another reason we need this story beat is so he can go back to somebody scarier than the devil. Am I right, guys? Jeez. But no, he's got to go back and tell his wife about this, right? This reminds me of the, what is it? Like the fisherman who found the magic talking fish, and it's like, I can grant your wishes. And the fisherman is like, no, that's okay. And he lets the fish go. And then he goes back and he talks to his wife, and his wife is like, why didn't you ask the fish to grant your wishes? And then she goes out and meets her end in a horrible way or something that.
Yeah.
Like I vaguely remember that as being like an old European folktale or something like that, right?
Right.
And this is kind of that where he has his opportunity. He squanders it. He goes back, and the wife is like, "Why? What were you thinking?"
Yeah.
But so he tells his wife, and she's all for making the deal. She's like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." But Tom, he gets cold feet or cold hoofs or whatever.
Well, he realizes that if he gets Captain Kidd's treasure, he's going to have to split it with his wife. So he would rather stay poor than give the wife half of the treasure.
What a relationship, folks. You could have treasure, but you have to share it with your wife, or you could have no treasure. And he's like, no treasure.
So you're right. If this was written by a boomer, I would be all like, oh, come on, this is so anti-feminist, etc. But because this is like classic literature, I'm like, this is so funny. So I understand that. But he says, many and bitter were the quarrels they had on the subject, but the more she talked, the more resolute.
I swear to God, Tom.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you something, Tom's wife.
She doesn't have a name.
But the more she talked, the more resolute was Tom not to be damned to please her.
Yeah. Just like two of the most cantankerous Bostonian folks.
Right. Just awful, awful people.
Yeah. Just don't get me started. Don't you dare get me started. Just throwing lobsters at each other. God. Yeah. But so Tom refuses, and but she decides to take matters into her own hands. She packs up all her silver, and she goes to see the devil himself. Right, herself. She goes to see the devil himself herself.
That's right.
Yes. And folks, she never comes back. It Irving kind of takes a while to talk about this, but it's like days pass. Now, this is how I know, we're in a different time where people just had their empathy gland had not developed yet. I would be worried out of my mind no matter how much I was mad at my wife, But it's like days go by and she didn't come back, and Tom's just kind of like curious about it. He's like, huh.
Well,
so where's my wife?
He cares about the silver she took.
Yes.
so he's like, hooray, hooray. She's not coming back anymore. Good for her. But he's like, but all of our good silver
Yeah, yeah. Oh, silver as in like silverware.
Yeah, silverware then was valuable. It was real silver.
Okay, I was reading it like, well, these people can't be terribly bad off. They got like a cabinet full of like silver.
Yeah, it was like her silver teapot and her.
Okay,
That,
like the yeah. Oh, right.
I don't know why you had to use real silver for that, but that was the case. Yeah. Back then.
So some folkloric thing.
Oh, maybe.
There.
Yeah. Or maybe it was just like the most malleable thing to make, teapots, and I'm not sure.
Yeah. And, it's like the Bakas down the street. They just got wooden forks and knives.
Right, like peasants. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but Irving does this thing again where he's like, we don't know what happened, so I can't tell you this. I can't show you it from her point of view of what happened to her, right? Because Old Scratch never told Tom, so we don't know what happens to her.
Yeah. What a great way to like instill mystery and suspense, and also just be really fucking lazy.
Right.
Now, I don't know what happened to old Tom's wife.
Yeah, that's what
nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Right? That's what I'm contending a lot of Lovecraft is, which is scary. But
yes,
like, I couldn't possibly explain to you how terrifying this was. Right? No author could.
It makes me mad. How well it works.
Right.
I read Lovecraft. By the way, terrible racist, that guy.
Right.
But I read Lovecraft, and he just talks about and I saw the thing's face, and I can't even describe to you. It melted my brain, and I'm like part of me is like, ooh, that's really I'm imagining the worst thing possible.
Right.
But then I'm also like, you fucking lazy son of a bitch,
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of what we got going on here. A few days later, Tom goes out to the place where he had met the devil, and he finds her cloth, her like kerchief or scarf or whatever, hanging from a tree. But instead of silver in there, there's just a human heart and liver, right? Why is it the heart symbolically oh, okay, that's spooky and creepy. Liver was like a thing back then. It's I'm going to eat your liver. No. Why liver? What was it about the liver?
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
You got to kill Dracula, stake through the spleen. What's the heart? I understand, but the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, the whatever.
Right.
I don't know. But Tom's actually happy about this. He's sorry about the silver, but he's not sorry about losing his wife.
That's right.
At which point, Irving puts down the pen. And he just turns to his empty room. He's like, am I right, guys? Am I right? Am I right? Huh? Friggin. Yeah. But yeah, eventually...
I was looking up whether he had a wife. I mean, he must have had a wife. But
and what she thought of this?
I don't see a wife. Maybe he didn't. I don't know.
Well, that explains... I mean, this is a chicken or egg situation. I mean, But yeah, eventually Tom...
Yeah, he was dating a woman, but she turned him down.
Shocking.
In the spring of 1823, and The Devil and Tom Walker is written in 1824.
What a find. There's no question. There's no question about wow. Oh God, that's perfect, Keenan.
That's so funny.
And then she left, and there was nothing but her heart and her liver.
And he was so happy
because he didn't need a wife. He didn't need a wife. Oh God. Oh man. Well, there you go. So, but that's not the end, folks. No.
Even though he could have stopped there and been quite happy.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so Tom decides to offer his soul to the devil in exchange for Captain Kidd's treasure. But at this point, the devil wants more. I did not take this as the devil is being cheaty and trickstery. This is this seems this is with interest. Right. It seems like the devil is being completely above board here. It's like you took too long. You you lost your wife. Now there's going to be more.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he wants Tom now to use the money first he says you have to use it to do my will.
Right.
And he says his first offer is like you're going to use that money to be a slave trader.
Right.
Now this is where Washington Irving is definitely inserting his own kind of 1820s sensibilities rather than accurately portraying 1720s attitudes, right?
Yeah, absolutely, you must be right. Yeah,
because in the actual time the story is set, slave trading was a mainstream economic activity in colonial New England. Many merchants in Boston were directly involved in the triangle trade. But Irving, writing this in the 1820s when the abolitionist movement was gaining momentum in the North, has even the despicable Tom Walker draw a moral line at slave trading.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not going to meddle in the buying and selling of human beings or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Which is, it's like, okay. Wow. Tom Walker. It's like you're a masshole, but you're not a slave trader. Huh.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the devil, for his point, is like, okay, I'm not going to, make you do anything like that. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Yeah, he's very casual. He's like, all right, yeah, whatever.
Okay, sure.
I tried. I did nothing, and I'm all out of options. Yeah. So Tom refuses to become a slave trader, which shows us that Irving wants to create a character who's horrible enough to sell his soul, but still has some kind of tiny shred of humanity that we can really. I don't know if that's true. I think it's horrible enough to sell his soul, but it's telling us that dealing in slaves is even worse than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So the devil then offers his second best job, lending money at ridiculous interest rates.
Yep. They just say be a usurer for me.
Yeah. Remember usury, folks. That's one of Dante's tower circles in his hell, which is lending money and then charging ridiculous amounts of interest. Hey, today.
Yeah. So back then, usury, or in the original use, usury was any interest at all. Mm-hmm. And then gradually, just because modern economies need interest, what usury becomes exorbitant interest as opposed to any interest at all.
But then exorbitant is that's a very, what's it called? Subjective term.
Yes. Yes. So do you remember in the story what interest rate Tom is charging?
Oh, shoot. I don't remember. No,
yeah. All right. So the devil says, you shall lend money at 2% a month. And Tom says, I'll charge 4% a month.
Folks, I'm laughing on the outside, but I am crying on the inside because that is not my current interest rate.
Right. Yeah, 4%.
4%. A percent for each of the horsemen. Right? But yeah. So Tom's all about that. He's like, yeah, let's do this, right? Mm-hmm. So Tom sets up a shop in Boston. So now we're in Boston, right? Now we're in Boston proper, right? And he's this predatory moneylender, basically taking everything from people who can't take him back, or who can't pay him back. He's taking their farms, he's taking their horses, he's eating the dogs, he's eating the cats.
Right, eating the dogs and the cats together in a salad.
Yeah.
No.
What are we savages? Come on. Right. But he becomes the richest man in Boston.
Right.
Right. But as he gets older, just like our buddy Faust, he starts worrying about the whole, selling your soul to the devil thing. So he gets super religious, thinking maybe he can pray his way out of the deal. Right.
Yeah. So again, he's basically finding part of the Great Awakening, right? So it's Irving making fun of the Great Awakening, which was America's first. There's been several Great Awakenings now, but America's first blush of religious fervor, especially within mainline Protestantism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's super cool. He's he is, the more that he is sinning, the more outwardly religious he becomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's not a commentary on religious practices at all.
Right.
Modern or otherwise.
Or otherwise, right?
No.
Jesus didn't say things like worship alone in your room.
Yeah, no, he never said that.
Where people can't hear you because the people who prayed to be seen are false.
Yeah. He said, give that mega church a shitload of money and then worship as loud as you can publicly and hire Paula White. Victory, victory, victory. Angels, angels, angels. Fucking. No. But then one day, after taking land from someone who had borrowed money from him, this poor guy is begging for more time, and Tom gets furious and shouts, "Let the devil take me if I've taken any money from you!"
Right.
Right. And well, speak of the devil, literally speak of the devil. There's a noise, and Tom opens the door, and there's the black giant with a horse saying, "Tom, I've come for you." And he grabs Tom, throws him on the horse, and off they go. And nobody ever saw Tom Walker again. I don't know why I'm doing the Maine accent now.
Because in Boston, they don't fucking care. If Tom Walker never got seen again. Who fucking
So where's
cares?
Tom Walker? I don't know.
Get off of it.
I owed him money. He's gone.
Yeah, and Tom says as he's being taken, right? He thinks to himself like, "Oh gosh, I've kept two different Bibles, one big Bible and one little Bible, in two different areas of my house for just this occasion, and I have now been caught without a Bible in my hand to prove how Christian I am." Now,
okay, I want to talk about that. Is Irving making the joke? Is he like? It's like, evil finds a way, and it managed to, seep in when he was nowhere near any of his Bibles, which would definitely have saved him. Or is he making a commentary on how Tom Walker just doesn't get it, and the Bibles wouldn't have done him any good?
That's what I think. I think they're making the difference between people who like to have the Bible close at hand because it reminds them of their faith or things like that, or comforts them. But that's not what he's doing. He's using them specifically as a prop.
Like the devil's a vampire.
Yes, exactly. Like the devil's a vampire, right? Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on.
Okay, yeah. So that's it. It's like I had the biggest, most expensive Bible, and it did me no good.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. What was that? Yeah, and yeah, Tom vanished, guys. The government, and I love this little addition to the story, right? It's like the government tried to claim his property. We're back in Maine again. But because Maine has the kind of like this is a legend, but there was nothing left. All his ownership papers had turned to ashes.
Right.
His gold and silver boxes were filled with worthless like sticks and wood chips. Right. His horses died and his house burned down.
Oh, we forgot to mention. So yeah, he's trying to prep himself with these Bibles throughout. And another thing he's trying to do when he's still alive is that he buries his horse upside down. Because alive, because he thinks that when the devil comes for him, the world's going to turn upside down, and he'll be able to jump on this horse upside down and ride away from the devil.
Was this is this some kind of like part of the mythology that I don't understand? Like when the devil comes, the world turns upside down. Like
I think he's not well, this Tom Walker at this point.
Okay. So even Irving is saying this guy's like. He's eating the dogs. He's eating the cat.
Yeah, he says, some say that Tom grew a little crack. So, not the main accent, but he says, some say that Tom grew a little crack brain in his old days, and that fancying his end approaching, he had his horse newly shod, saddled and bridled, and buried with his feet uppermost. Because he supposed that at the last day the world would be turned upside down, in which case he should find his horse standing ready for mounting, and he was determined at his worst to give his old friend a run for it.
Okay, so this is like Tom Walker logic. This isn't myth. This okay.
Tom Walker logic.
But also this implies and I've heard this before. Also, it's like when the day of people seem to keep on mixing the day of judgment, like the end of the world day, with their own day.
With your own death, right?
Yeah. Like when judgment comes, the world will be turned upside down. Yeah, but what about the day that you die? That's going to be a different day,
Yes, right.
It's like, are you ready for the apocalypse? No, because I'm not going to be there. Like, I'm going to be dead before that.
I guess, a lot for thousands of years, people have believed that they would be there for the day of judgment, right? That they would be alive then, that it's coming really soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nobody ever saw Tom Walker again.
Yeah, but yeah. So this is basic. That's another thing I want to talk about though. Before we leave that, is I've seen this in other devil stories where and now the only one I can think of is not a devil story, but it's like in Spirited Away where, like, remember when No-Face is offering the gold and, he tries to give it to Chihiro, but he gives it to everybody else. And then it eventually just turns into dirt. Right. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I swear that's also like part of devil lore is that at some point, like, the game is up and all of the riches kind of turn into, like, almost implying that that's what they were all the whole time. Like, it was just dirt and rocks or whatever, right? It's like, you've been bamboozled. It's like you sold your soul for, like, like a pile of rocks or something like that. Right. Right.
Or that the rewards are temporary, unlike the rewards of God, which are permanent.
Right. So, like, even if it is actual gold, it's like it may as well be a bunch of rocks.
Yes.
Because you sold your soul, like you gave away, like, the greatest eternal gift for, what? Pieces of metal?
The only eternal gift, the only thing that actually matters. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Again, like, the reason I have trouble with, like, so yes, obviously this is influenced by Faust. What it doesn't have with that Faust has is a contract with terms to it,
Right.
So basically, Tom Walker, the devil, I guess, is just waiting around until Tom Walker says out loud this thing of, like, let the devil take me if I've earned any money off of this.
And that's got some power.
Yeah, but he was not warned about that or anything like that. And basically, the devil's just playing a long game until he has this kind of hubris to besmirch the devil aloud or something.
Yeah. No, you're right. And this is, I think once we get to the devil and Daniel Webster, we're going to see a little bit more of a, like an actual, like, legal kind of ins and outs, argument. With it's like, in paragraph section B,
Yeah, and that feels more Faust-like.
But here it's a little bit more. It really does feel like they took an old, like, fairy tale or folk tale from, quote unquote, the old country, right? This is like, like an Irish myth or like a Danish myth or something like that, where, and then they replaced the fairy or the red cap or the goblin or the leprechaun with the devil,
Right.
And it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it in our opening, but I think you're absolutely right. Like, just be careful because, like those stories, it's like, hey, if you wander too far out of the town, you're just bound to encounter a fairy or a fae.
Right. And it's not like, again, like, in our other ones, we're going to see the devil kind of like going into society and he's dressed in a suit and he's like, well, my name, and he gives his little card and it says Old Scratch. And, here it's like you got lost in the woods. Don't ever do that. Now here's a fae or a devil or whatever, right?
Yeah, and again, I love putting it into the American context. And I guess this is our first, like, American devil that we've told so far, yeah. And again, so that he talks directly, even though in a way that 100 and or however long ago, 200 years ago, the way that he's doing this 200 years ago, like, he doesn't have the words or the frameworks to think about it, but like the devil is united with the American ideas of unfettered capitalism, the Native American genocide, and slavery. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. And we're going to say, like, this one kind of, like, it puts, America or the colonies as this kind of, like, this is God's land, right? This is the, the city on the hill and, and all that stuff. Right. So it's like, we already see kind of like echoes, or not echoes, like pre-echoes of like manifest destiny, and and it's like, God wants this to be a prosperous, new land for white people. And the devil is trying to corrupt that.
Right.
Yeah.
What the devil is represented as like unsettled native lands.
Right. Yeah. Right. But folks, that is our first installment of the Devil and.
We're back, baby.
Yeah, right. We're back, and we got Tom Walker, and we got a bunch of lobsters. I don't know what this isn't Boston anymore. This is like whatever.
It has been Boston for a long time.
No, it was never Boston. Jeez. It's more Brooklyn anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I think the next one is
Captain Lou Albano.
Yeah, no, it's going from Lou Albano to Bill the Butcher. It's it's all over the place. But yeah, so our next one is going to be The Devil and Daniel Webster. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm excited for that. And this month, we're going to be looking at Legend with Tim Curry as they just call him the Lord of Darkness in this one.
That's our bonus episode.
That's our bonus
For members only.
Yes. Folks, this has been another episode of The Devil's Details. I've been Lester Ryan Clark. You can summon me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Keenan Diaz, and you can invoke me on Instagram and Letterboxd as Howdy Keenan.
Yeah, find more of our shows and other really cool podcasts at truestory.fm, or you can drop us a message at Banana for Scale Mail, that's MAIL, at gmail.com. We got our Facebook listener group, Banana for Scale. That's a community for all of our shows, including this one. It's a private group, but just request to join, and we'll let you into the infernal family. If you want more, consider joining us at truestory.fm/join and look for Banana for Scale. That's us. You get bonus episodes of all of our shows, access to our Discord, and you get your episodes a week early. Pretty cool. Just $5. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? We're not even asking for your souls. Just give us a 5 pentagram rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. That and sharing the show by word of mouth or on social media helps our little podcast grow and find more cool people like you. All right, folks. So that is it for this week. Until next week, love and hisses. Mwah.